up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beansworthy Entertainment. In this video, we're going over the afternoon and the Sunday night football game for Week 7 of the 2023 NFL season. Again, I'm just a guy behind a camera. I'm just saying what I think will happen based on the statistics and what I have seen this season, analyzed, and watched through highlight videos. Hope everybody enjoys the video. And hit that like button if you did enjoy the video. And make sure you check out the other videos on this page. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button. Be kind and respectful to others. And most of all, be kind and respectful to yourself. You're the number one person on this world. Nobody matters more than you do. Don't give up either. That's another thing that I haven't said in a while. I know that we go through tough times. Find someone to talk to. But yeah, let's get into the first game. And for this week, for this video, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Los Angeles Rams for the afternoon game. The LA Rams are the ones that are at home. Steelers are ranked 19th on the power rankings, and the LA Rams are ranked 17th. The Steelers are 3-2 and second in the AFC North, and the Rams are 3-3, third in the NFC West. And on the Steelers side, for the offense, we have 268.2 total yards per game. That is 30th in the league. 187.8 passing yards per game. That is 27th in the league. 80.4 rushing yards per game. That is 28th in the league. And they've only gotten 5 receiving touchdowns and no rushing touchdowns this year. They are one of 2 or 3 teams that haven't had a rushing touchdown yet this year. But only 5 receiving touchdowns. They've only scored 30 points on offense, and they've allowed 14 sacks. So a little average there on the sacks. Moving over to the LA Rams side, they've got 367 total yards per game, 7th in the league. 258.8 passing yards per game. That is 6th in the league. They've got Puka out there. Puka Nacua is a guy that came into the league, and to be honest, he shocked everybody. But love to see it. This guy is out there doing the best that he can every single week. But the rushing yards per game, they've only got 108.2 rushing yards per game. The Rams do. That is 17th in the league. They've got 13 touchdowns that they've scored, 6 receiving and 7 rushing touchdowns. They've gotten 78 points scored and only allowed 16 sacks. So that's also pretty average. For the turnovers, the Steelers have given up 4 interceptions and 2 fumbles. The Rams, they've given up 5 interceptions, but only 1 fumble. And then on to the defensive side, the Steelers have allowed 389.4 total yards per game. That is 30th in the league. Allowed 245.6 passing yards per game. That is 25th in the league. And also 143.8 rushing yards per game. That is 29th in the league. They've given up 11 touchdowns, 8 receiving, and 3 rushing. 66 points have been allowed. But they've had a pick 6, a safety, and 1 fumble return for the defense. 5 interceptions and 6 fumbles, by the way, for the Steelers. And like I said, 1 pick 6, 1 safety, 1 fumble return. They've got 17 sacks. The yard numbers don't look good, but they're doing good turnover-wise. But if they could just do better with defense. Do better. They're allowing too many yards. On the Rams side, they've only allowed 330.3 total yards per game, which is 13th in the league. They've allowed 208.2 passing yards per game, which is 13th in the league as well. Rushing-wise, they've allowed 122.2 rushing yards per game. That's 22nd in the league. And they've allowed 10 touchdowns, only 4 receiving touchdowns, which is tied for best in the league, and 6 rushing touchdowns. They've allowed 60 points and gotten 10 sacks this year. So maybe get a little bit better at getting to the quarterback But again, the Steelers for turnovers, 5 interceptions and 6 fumbles that they've got. The Rams, they've only got 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So the Rams have a -1 turnover differential, and the Steelers are +5 for their turnover differential. Also, their kicker is perfect for both extra points and field goals, 35 points from the kicker. And on the Rams side, their kicker is perfect for extra points, but he's missed 4 field goals. But they're 16 for 20 on field goals. He's scored 60 points. The Rams have scored 60 points on their kicker alone. Moving to the stat leaders for these teams. On the Steelers side, we got Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, and George Pickens. Rams got Matt Stafford, Kyren Williams, and Puka Nacua. Now, let's see what this offense actually can do now that Cooper Kupp's back. Hopefully he stays healthy, and I feel like that offense can get a little dangerous. But for the quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, he's got 95 completions for 159 attempts, 1,027 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Matt Stafford, he's got 139 completions on 227 yards, 1,677 yards, 277 attempts for 1,677 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. The running backs, Najee's got 63 carries for 247 yards, still doesn't have a touchdown on the ground. Kyren Williams, he's got 97 carries, 456 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But Kyren is going to be out. He got sent to the IR. And the receivers, George Pickens, he's got 22 catches for 393 yards and 2 touchdowns. Puka's got 50 catches, 598 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That kid has absolutely been balling out this year. Fourth, the matchup, ESPN has the Rams favored, and so does Vegas. The over-under is 44, and the Rams are favored by 3. ESPN's got them favored by 58%. The Steelers, they've lost to the 49ers and the Texans, which isn't really surprising to me. The Browns, the Raiders, and the Ravens, they have beaten. The Ravens was surprising, and I'm not mad about it. But on the Rams side, the Rams have lost to the 49ers, Bengals, and Eagles, and won against the Seahawks, Colts, and Cardinals this year. So, a couple good teams that they lost to. Bengals I feel was just revenge for the Super Bowl. But Seahawks, Colts, and Cardinals, I'll give them credit for beating the Colts. Seahawks was a fluke in week 1. I feel like Geno Smith wasn't, I hate to say, ready for the season. But now that it's been some time, he took some time off. He's came back, and now the Seahawks are doing well. Injury-wise for the Steelers, we've got Anthony McFarland and Pat Freiermuth that are on the IR. And then on the Rams, like I said, Kyren got put on the IR. Laurel Murchison, he is out. Darian Kendrick, Ernest Jones, and Ben Skowronek are all 3 questionable. So keep an eye on them for this game. Honestly, with the fact that the Steelers have, because I was talking to a friend of mine and everything, because sometimes just bouncing ideas back and forth, and I've got to actually go on this video and apologize to him, because now that I'm actually looking at the complete numbers of the Steelers, he was right, and they're just a bad team this year. Turnover-wise, turnovers are the only thing that you could look at and say is good. They don't have a rushing touchdown. That's bad. Yards allowed, really bad. Luckily enough, they've managed to not let their opponents score somehow, and I feel like that's just the turnovers. So turnovers are kind of holding up that 3-2 record, but I don't think that it's going to hold it up very much longer. I'm going to take the Rams on this one, like Vegas said. And we're going to actually take the over on this one because I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers still do put up some points. But they're just going to be that defense is going to be having to deal with Puka, Cooper, Ben Skoronix, and the Rams are ranked 6th in the league for passing offense. So let's go ahead and put down 36 for the Rams and 20 for the Steelers. 56 points total. Way over the over. We're going to go with that and lock that in. 36 points Rams, 20 points Steelers. 36-20. Rams win. And that's it for that game. Moving on to the next one, we got the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks that are an afternoon game as well. And the Arizona Cardinals are ranked 27th in the league and last in the NFC West with a 1-5 record. Seattle Seahawks, who are at home, they are ranked 11th and second in the NFC West with that 3-2 record. The Cardinals offense numbers, we got 331.7 total yards per game. That's 15th in the league. 190.7 passing yards per game. That's 25th in the league. And 141 rushing yards per game, which is 6th in the league. That's surprising. I didn't actually realize that the Cardinals were doing that good on the ground this year. Who is doing that good on the ground this year? Okay. But they've got 11 touchdowns that they've scored, 6 receiving and 5 rushing touchdowns. 66 points have been scored for the Cardinals and 11 sacks have been allowed. Over on the Seahawks side, we got 332 total yards per game. That's 14th in the league. 227.8 passing yards per game. That's 11th in the league. And 104.2 rushing yards per game at 20th in the league. They've also got 11 touchdowns scored, but it's flip-flop. They've got 5 receiving and 6 rushing touchdowns. 66 points scored, and also they have 11 sacks allowed. So, other than the turnovers, the turnovers and yards. If you look at the scoring, these teams are almost identical. But then you go to the turnovers, and the Cardinals have given up 3 interceptions and 4 fumbles. The Seahawks haven't fumbled the ball on offense yet, and they've got 3 interceptions that they've given up this year. So that's right there alone. That is the sign of why the Seahawks are on the favored side of the coin, especially not to mention the 1-5 versus the 3-2 record. For the defense on the Cardinals side, they've got 376.7 total yards allowed this year. That is 28th in the league. They got 243.3 receiving yards allowed per game this year, 22nd in the league, and 133.7 rushing yards per game allowed. That's 24th in the league. They've allowed 17 touchdowns and 102 points. 9 receiving and 8 rushing. They've got 1 fumble return and 18 sacks, so that's a little good. Over on the Seahawks side, they've allowed 336.8 total yards per game. That's 16th in the league. 257.6 passing yards per game allowed. That's 28th in the league. But for rushing, they are doing great in Seattle. They've only allowed 79.2 rushing yards per game, and that's 4th in the league. So they've only allowed 12 touchdowns for 72 points allowed, 7 receiving and 5 rushing. And the Seahawks have 2 pick sixes and 19 sacks. Both teams are identical on the defense side of the ball for turnovers at 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles. So that just means that's where those 4 fumbles on the offense that the Cardinals have, they break even with the turnover differential, but the Seahawks don't have those. So the Seahawks are +4 for their turnover differential. And the kickers, Cardinals, their kicker has missed 1 extra point and 1 field goal and gotten 43 points from that. The Seahawks, their kicker has been perfect for extra points, but he's missed 4 field goals. He's 73.3% efficiency rate and only 44 points, 1 more point more than the Cardinals for special teams. Let's dive into the stat leaders for this game. And for the Cardinals, we got Joshua Dobbs, James Conner, and Hollywood Brown. For the Seahawks, we have Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker III, and DK Metcalf. Now, the quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs is 123 completions on 196 attempts, 1,215 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Geno Smith, he's 111 completions on 164 attempts for 1,172 yards, 5 touchdowns, and those 3 interceptions. The running backs, James Conner, he's got 68 carries for 364 yards and 2 touchdowns this season. Kenneth Walker III, he's got 83 carries, 345 yards, and 6 touchdowns this year. And for receiving, we got Hollywood Brown that has 29 catches, 334 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the year, my bad. DK's got 22 catches, 337 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the year. Now with the schedule, we go over to the Cardinals, who have only got the 1 win versus the Cowboys. I don't know. I feel like that game was kind of a little bit of a fluke, or you could just say the Cowboys aren't good. I don't want to say that the Cowboys aren't good. Again, I said stuff about Dak Prescott in a previous video, and probably shouldn't have went off on him like that. But yeah, the Cowboys aren't necessarily bad. I feel like, and again, I feel like that's a fluke game. The Cardinals should not have a win at all this season. And to make matters worse, it's just their losses have came to the Commanders, the Giants, the 49ers, Bengals, and Rams. Now, those recent losses, the 49ers, Bengals, and Rams, okay. But the Commanders and Giants at the beginning of the year, especially a 3-point loss to the Giants, that's tough. On the Seahawks side of the ball, they've got 2 losses. They've lost to the Rams and the Bengals, but they've beat the Lions, the Panthers, and the Giants. Giants and Panthers, not spectacular, but they did get a 6-point win over the Lions, and definitely looking at that. Over on the Cardinals side for injuries, we've got Budda Baker that's still on IR, Elijah Wilkinson, Antonio Hamilton Sr., and Jalen Thompson are all ruled out. Josh Woods is questionable. On the Seahawks side, we've got Evan Brown, Phil Haynes, Zach Charbonnet, and DK Metcalf. All 4 of those guys are questionable. Keep an eye out on them, as that'll be something to watch out for today as the games move along. Now, ESPN has Seahawks favored by 79.5%, and Vegas has the Seahawks favored by 8 points. The over-under is 44.5 points. And I'll agree with that. They might be good at rushing the ball on offense, but the Seahawks are better at defending it. Geno Smith's going to go out there. He's been doing good throwing the ball in there, not good at defending the pass. 9 receiving touchdowns allowed. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one hell of a game over the air. And also, once they get ahead, it's just Kenneth Walker's going to be able to take over. Just because the Cardinals' defense isn't that great. Turnovers might be a factor. But I still got the Seahawks, but I'm going to take the under on this one. We're going to go 24-16 on this one. Seahawks 24, Cardinals 16. So lock that in. 24-16, Cardinals win. And that'll be it for that game. Next game that we got is the Chargers versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs are at home for this one. The Chargers are ranked 14th on the power rankings. 2-3 is their record, and they're 3rd in the AFC West. The Chiefs are ranked number 2 on the power rankings. They're 5-1 and 1st in the AFC West. The Chargers' numbers on offense, they've got 265.4 total yards per game. That is 10th in the league. 259 passing yards per game. That is 5th in the league. 106.4 rushing yards per game. That is 18th in the league. They've gotten 15 touchdowns this year, 10 receiving and 5 rushing. They've scored 90 points on offense and only allowed 10 sacks from that offensive line. So that's great. The Chiefs offense, we got 382.3 total yards per game. That's 4th in the league. 263.8 passing yards per game. That is 2nd in the league. And 118.5 rushing yards per game. That's 11th in the league. They've also got 15 touchdowns that they've scored, 11 receiving and 4 rushing. 90 points scored, and they've only allowed 6 sacks. Turnover-wise, though, the Chargers have only given up 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. The Chiefs, they've given up 7 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So that's not necessarily good. Go to the defense on the Chargers side. They've allowed 391.6 total yards per game. That's 31st in the league. 289 passing yards per game have been allowed. That's worst in the league. 102.6 rushing yards per game allowed. That's 14th in the league, so they kind of save face by having a good rushing defense. But they have allowed 14 touchdowns this year. They've allowed 84 points and gotten 21 sacks. So that point ratio is very, very big. And over on the Chiefs side for their defense, they've only allowed 284 total yards per game. That's 5th in the league. They've allowed 183.8 passing yards per game. That is 5th in the league. And only 100.2 rushing yards per game, which is 12th in the league. They've only allowed 8 touchdowns over on the Chiefs side. They've only allowed 48 points, and they've gotten 17 sacks. Now, I believe that the sacks aren't going to be anything to worry about. Oh, the turnovers. Chargers have 3 interceptions and 5 fumbles that they've got. Chiefs have 3 interceptions and 6 fumbles. So both teams have decent turnovers for their defense. But the turnover differential for the Chargers is +5, and the Chiefs just are flat even for their turnover differential. And the stat leaders for the Chargers, we got Justin Herbert, Josh Kelly, and Keenan Allen. The Chiefs, we got Pat Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, and Travis Kelce. Shout out to Kelce and those 2 brothers. Shout out to New Heights, my favorite sports podcast. Go ahead and check out New Heights if you haven't already. But for the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, he's got 125 completions on 182 attempts for 1,333 yards, 9 touchdowns on just 2 interceptions. Pat Mahomes, he's got 153 completions on 224 attempts, 1,593 yards, 11 touchdowns on those 5 interceptions, and just 5 interceptions, sorry. But for the running backs, we got Josh Kelly that's got 58 carries for 209 yards and 1 touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco, he's got 87 carries for 387 yards and 3 touchdowns. The receivers, Keenan Allen's got 42 catches for 519 yards and 4 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, he's got 36 catches for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I feel like this is going to be a big game. I mean like a big scoring game. Both kickers are on both sides are about the same. They're perfect for extra points. 1 field goal miss per side. 35 points scored on the Chargers side. 46 points on the Chiefs side. And the Chargers, they've lost to the Dolphins, Titans, and Cowboys. And 1 against the Vikings and Raiders. So, and these are all 1 possession. Every single one of these are 1 possession defeats. So every single one has been close. And just looking at what has happened, there's a couple of them that I feel like they could have pulled off. I remember that week 1 game when the Dolphins were just going nuts. Yeah, Dolphins just got the zoomies. But the Vikings and the Raiders, those aren't necessarily impressive wins, and especially being 1.1 possession victories. I'm not I'm not really I'm not amazed by that at all. But on the Chiefs side, they took that week 1 loss to the Lions, and since then they've just won every single game. The Jags, the Bears, the Jets, the Vikings, the Broncos. Meanwhile, the only team that's spectacular out of that group is the Jaguars that they beat. But we'll see as they get to the tougher part of their schedule how everything pans out. For ESPN, they've got the Chiefs, and the Vegas also got the Chiefs favored. That's no surprise there. The over-under is 48, and the Chiefs are favored by 5.5. And ESPN's got their matchup predictor at the Chiefs winning by 68.5%. Oh, also, the injuries. Forgot to go over the injuries. The Chargers injuries. Otito Ogbonnia. Ogbanya. Otito Ogbanya is on the PUP list still. Jalen Guyton's on the PUP list. Elohai Gilman is out. Deontay Leonard is out. And Derwin James Jr. is questionable. On the Chiefs side of the ball, Justin Watson is out and Jalen Watson is questionable. Now, I'm going to still go with mine, and I know that the over-under was 48, but I'm still going to go with the over on this one. I feel like this is going to be a shootout, and the Chargers have liked to keep the games close. So, let me do my math here quick. I'm gonna take the over. Let's go ahead and put down $35-33. I'm gonna go 35-33 with the Chiefs winning. Go ahead and lock that one in there. Again, 35-33, Chiefs win. Next game we got, and this one is the last afternoon game. Yep, this will be the last afternoon game. We've got the Green Bay Packers that are going to Denver to take on the Broncos. And the Green Bay Packers, they are ranked 20th on the power ranking list with a 2-3 record and second in the NFC North. The Broncos, they are ranked 28th on the list with a 1-5 record, and they are last in the AFC West. Now, the Packers offense, they've got 281.6 total yards per game. That is 28th in the league. 200 passing yards per game. That is 21st in the league. And 81.6 rushing yards per game. That is 27th in the league. They've scored 12 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving and 4 rushing. That's 70.2 points that they've scored on offense and only allowed 10 sacks. On the Broncos side, we've got 306.3 total yards per game. That's 21st in the league. 200.3 passing yards per game. That is 20th in the league. And 106 rushing yards per game. That's 19th in the league. They've scored 13 touchdowns this year. 12 receiving touchdowns, but only 1 rushing touchdown. So there's 78 points that they've scored, but they've allowed 19 sacks. That number is getting up there a little bit. Turnover-wise, though, the Packers, they haven't given up any fumbles. They've only got they've given up 6 interceptions. And the Broncos, they've given up 4 interceptions, and they've fumbled the ball 7 times. So that's not good for the Broncos offense. They need to fix those turnovers up. They're in a tough situation, too, with the Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, and a lot of money sunk into that. But moving on, we'll go to the Packers defense, who's allowed 337.8 total yards per game. That's 17th in the league. Allowed 194.4 passing yards per game. That's 9th in the league. And allowed 143.4 rushing yards per game. That is 28th in the league. So the rushing defense isn't that good for the Packers this year. They've allowed 11 touchdowns, 5 receiving, and 6 rushing. 66 points allowed. And over on the Broncos side, we have the worst defense in the league. The worst allowed 440.2 8.3 total yards per game. Again, that's worst in the league. Allowed 268 passing yards per game. That is 30th in the league. Allowed 172.3 rushing yards per game. That is worst in the league. And they have given up 22 touchdowns. They have allowed 132 points in that organization. That is sad. It is hard to watch. I feel for all Denver Broncos fans, and I give it to you guys for still sticking with it. And that's coming from a Browns fan. On the Packers side, Packers have one pick six. They've got 4 interceptions and 1 fumble, and they've gotten 15 sacks. Over on the Broncos side, they've got 4 interceptions and 2 fumbles for one fumble return for a touchdown and 14 sacks. The turnover differentials are a little bit apart, but both of them are negative. Packers are -1, and the Broncos are -5 for the turnover differential. The Packers kicker's perfect for extra points and field goals, 31 points from his leg. And the Broncos have missed 1 extra point and 1 field goal, and their kicker has gotten them 35 points. Now for the stat leaders of this matchup. In the Packers, we got Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, and Romeo Doubs. Broncos, we got Russell Wilson, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Cortland Sutton. Now, of the quarterbacks, Jordan Love's 90 completions, 162 attempts for 1,083 yards, 8 touchdowns on those 6 interceptions. Russell Wilson, he's got 122 completions on 185 attempts for 1,305 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So, again, I will say that Russ doesn't look bad on paper, but then you watch. It's not a pretty thing to watch. For the running backs, we got A.J. Dillon that has 64 carries on 194 yards for 1 touchdown. Jaleel, he's gotten 29 carries for 190 yards and 1 touchdown. So, Jaleel's got half of the carries and the same amount of yardage and the same amount of touchdowns as A.J. Dillon. The receivers, we got Romeo Doubs that has 21 catches, 228 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton has 25 catches for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. Love to see that. And then we look at the schedule for the Packers. They beat the Bears and the Saints. Not too impressive, especially they only beat the Saints by a point. They've lost to the Falcons, Lions, and Raiders. Falcons, Raiders game, 1 possession game losses. Lions, they lost by 14 points. That's expected. Over on the Broncos side, they've only got 1 win, and that was that 4th quarter comeback against the Bears. So they've played the Raiders, Commanders, Dolphins, Jets, and Chiefs. So I feel like there's a couple of games that they could have ended up winning, especially with the numbers that they've been putting up this year. It's just bad turnover differential and the worst defense in the league. It truly shows how important having at least a defense that is significant. But hopefully they get stuff figured out. On the Packers side for injuries, we got Eric Stokes that's still on the PUP. Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, Devontae Wyatt, and Quay Walker are all questionable. And then on the Broncos side, Baron Browning is on the PUP, Greg Dulcich is out, and Kwan Williams is on the IR. ESPN has the Packers favored, and so does Vegas. The over-under is 45. The Packers are favored by 1, and ESPN has them favored by 57%. And I'll go ahead and agree with them on that. That defense is just too bad, but I don't think that it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to go with the under on this one. And only a couple of touchdowns are going to be scored in this game, I feel like. Give the Packers a couple and the Broncos 1. It's just like, okay. 20-10. I'm going to take the Packers winning. Packers get 20 points. Broncos get 10 points. Sorry, I'll lean up. Sorry about that. But 20-10. Lock that in. Packers win. 20-10. Just feel like that's a pretty good one. Taking that under, taking the Packers that are favorited. Don't sound bad. And that'll be it for our afternoon games, but we're not done yet. One more game left. Let's go over the Sunday night football game. We've got the Miami Dolphins traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. And the Miami Dolphins are ranked third on the power ranking list with a 5-1 record, first in the AFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles are ranked number 5 on the list, 5-1 record, and they are first in the NFC East. Now the Dolphins offense, top tier. Dolphins are by far the best in the league when it comes to their offense. So I don't even have to say the rankings. I'm just going to tell you the numbers. 498.7 total yards per game, 316.8 passing yards per game, 181.8 rushing yards per game. They have scored 30 touchdowns, 15 receiving, 15 rushing. They have scored 180 points this year through 6 games. And it seems like Tyreek Hill, if he keeps this pace up, doesn't get injured, he's going to hit 2K. And if he hits 2K, breaks the record, and doesn't get MVP, and they give it to a quarterback, I'm going to fucking riot. But the Dolphins offensive line, they've only allowed 6 sacks also. They're doing a great job of protecting Tua over there. Awesome. I love to see it. On the Eagles side, their offense is doing good as well. They got 395 total yards per game. That is second in the league. 245 passing yards per game. That is 9th in the league. And 150 rushing yards per game. That is second in the league. They've scored 14 touchdowns for 84 points this year and allowed 14 sacks. A little bit more than the Dolphins, but we'll see. We'll see if that's an issue or anything. Turnover-wise, the Dolphins have given up 6 interceptions and 3 fumbles. And the Eagles, they've given up 7 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So they got the same amount of turnovers on the offense side of the ball. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, the Dolphins, they've allowed 343.7 total yards per game. That is 20th in the league. They've allowed 229.2 passing yards per game, which is 19th in the league. And allowed 114.5 rushing yards per game. That is 20th in the league. They've allowed 15 touchdowns for 90 points this year. 8 receiving and 7 rushing. They've gotten 21 sacks. And also for the turnovers, they've gotten 2 interceptions and 3 fumbles. No defensive touchdowns, though. Over on the Eagles side, we've got the Eagles that have only allowed 298 total yards per game. That is 9th in the league. They've allowed 232.2 passing yards per game. That is 20th in the league, though. That's going to be alarming going up against that number 1 offense. That Tua, Tyreek, Jalen, all those guys that are over there. Great weapons. But when it comes to the ground game, the Eagles have only allowed 65.8 rushing yards per game. That is second in the league. They're going to have a tough time dealing with the run game, dealing with that box. They got big guys up there. They got big guys over there in Philadelphia. And touchdowns, they've allowed 14 touchdowns for 84 points. So they've allowed a little bit less. Just 1 touchdown less, actually, than the Dolphins did. And turnover-wise, the Eagles got 2 interceptions and 6 fumbles. What was that with my voice? But they've also got 1 pick six and 1 safety. The Eagles have gotten 20 sacks this year. It's great. So both good defense or both good teams that are coming up. But Eagles, I feel like, got the best defense. Dolphins have the best offense. So we're going to have to go ahead and see how this works out. The stat leaders for this matchup, the Dolphins, they've got Tua Tagovailoa, Devon Achane, and Tyreek Hill. Eagles, they've got Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift, and A.J. Brown. Now the quarterbacks, Tua, he's 140 completions on 197 attempts, 1,876 yards, 14 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. Jalen, he's got 141 completions on 213 attempts, 1,542 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. So he's the Eagles in general have just been going through, lack of a better term, a little bit of an identity crisis. But I feel like they'll iron out the kinks. I hope that they iron out the kinks. That's just my gut feeling that they do. But moving on to the running backs, we got Devon Achane. That's 38 carries for 460 yards and 5 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift, he's got 86 carries for 452 yards and 2 touchdowns. Receivers, we got Tyreek Hill with 42 catches, 814 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Again, if he keeps that pace up, he's going to break the record. And then A.J. Brown, he's got 42 catches for 672 yards and 2 touchdowns. Going to the schedule, the Dolphins, they've only got the one loss to the Bills, but they beat the Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, Giants, and Panthers. Nothing really spectacular about that. We'll see how they fare against the Eagles, who are actually probably the toughest team that they faced so far. On the Eagles side, they unfortunately took that gut-wrenching loss to the Jets last week. But their first 5 games they won: Patriots, Vikings, Buccaneers, Commanders, and Rams. Again, teams that aren't really anything impressive for a win, but they still got the win, and a win is a win, so I'll give credit is due. Credit is due. The injuries, though, over on the Dolphins side of the ball, Jeff Wilson just got activated from IR, but is still, I'm pretty sure they're rolling him out for this game since he is just now getting back to practice. Jalen Ramsey's on the IR. Connor Williams, Xavier Howard, and Alec Ingold. Those 3 are questionable. And then on the Eagles side, they are not going to have Reed Blankenship or Bradley Roby. Both of those guys are out. Vegas is favoring the Eagles. ESPN favors the Dolphins. ESPN's got the Dolphins by 58.5%. Vegas has the over-under at 51.5%. And the Eagles favored by 2.5. With the Eagles at home, I'm going to take them and going to go ahead and take the over because I'm going to sit the Eagles at about in the 30s. Hope everyone had a good good Sunday and is having a good Sunday. If you already watched the first video, thank you. Because they get a lot of touchdowns per game, but this might be a different story. But with the score, I'm gonna go with the Eagles 34. We'll go 34 Eagles and give the Dolphins 28. Give it a close one, and that's the score that I'll go ahead and give for those guys since they're at home. I'll give Eagles the win. Lock it in. 34-28. The turnover differential is going to make a difference. Eagles have a better defense. Eagles, I think, that are going to be able to move the ball easier. But we will see. And that is the Sunday night football game. And that is the last game for this video. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Again, hit that like button if you had fun watching. Explore the other content on my page. I do live streams during the weekdays. I've gotten busy with some work, so if you are a subscriber and have been wondering why I haven't been going live, between running my own business, helping a buddy out with another business, and I've got another friend that is got a couple rental properties that he's going through and renovating before he actually leases them out again. So I've just got a lot of stuff on my plate, so I'm sorry if you miss me. I'm gonna get it wrapped up and locked in. I do at least try to get a couple of days in a week for you guys, but Hope everyone has a good Sunday and is having a good Sunday. If you already watched the first video, thank you. I appreciate you guys that support me. And be kind and respectful to each other, and most of all, be kind and respectful to yourself. You're the number one person in this world. Nobody matters more than you do. You're the number, yeah. You're number one. Of course, I go and mess up the last line of my stream. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you, guys. See you next time.